Well, while we're on this topic, man, I got to hit you with a difficult question, but I just got to ask: how does it feel for you to have been the subject of several kind of like hit piece, kind of YouTube documentaries? Like, obviously, you've kind of been on the receiving end of some of that shit recently. Like, how does that feel when you see your face on a thumbnail of a hit piece doc of the type of thing you might really enjoy and savor watching on someone else? You know what I mean?
Um, it's weird because mostly I won't watch it, so I don't really know what is in them. I've had the experience of sometimes like seeing a video about myself has a horrible title that makes me sound like the worst person on earth, and then I'll click it and watch it and realize that the person who made the video actually isn't really that against me or doesn't really buy into some of the allegations against me, but they also know that the way to get views on this video is to make the title as provocative as possible. So that's kind of interesting. And sometimes I'll be like, there's been a time or two where I was like, damn, that guy hates me. And then I finally get around to watching the video and I'm like, oh, he doesn't hate me. But the title and the thumbnail certainly would lead people in that direction. I don't know. I mean, I try not to think about it too much because, I mean, one of the weird things about it is that somebody can make a video about you, it could get 1 million views, and then you'll never meet someone ever who has anything to say about it or says anything about it who has seen it. And it's like, well, I know at least 1 million people have seen this, but somehow I've never interacted with any of them. I mean, obviously, like some people around me probably have seen it. They're too polite to mention it or whatever. But I mean, I like it when even if the opinion of me is kind of negative, it's whatever as long as it seems honest. But a lot of times it doesn't seem honest, or a lot of times like you'll be watching a whole video about you, and I remember I was watching a video and they just said like, oh, so this guy Lush, he was like the biggest star on No Jumper, and I'm like you put together this whole video and then you're just gonna say that Lush was the biggest star on the platform. Like the whole video seemed pretty good, and then you just kind of like miss this one detail where it's like, okay, Lush was like reasonably popular, but you can't put him in the most popular category. What the fuck are you talking about? And so I don't know, but it's just like low hanging fruit shit too, where like people they just tend to go with the easy narrative or the easy synopsis of what's going on, and that the laziness is what kind of gets to me sometimes because I feel like when I have an argument against somebody on camera that I'm willing to bring on camera, that typically I will go out of my way to try to debunk it myself or to try to figure out what the counterpoint is, etc. And it's kind of weird when people don't do the same for you, although it doesn't surprise me even slightly because I've been on the internet too long to think that people are gonna sort of owe you that level of introspection that you might be willing to give them.
Yeah, man, it's interesting to kind of like see things go that way. But like, do you feel like with everything that's happened, do you feel like there came a point where you begun to like kind of like use the Reddit to your advantage, or like, you there was a period of time when it was almost like people started to be like, oh, Adam has sort of become the mastermind of playing these little kind of public opinions. There's that classic illustration that went around of like you dropping all the old No Jumper hosts like I'm
Right.
done playing. I'm done. I need some new toys or something. Like, was there a moment? I mean, a lot of people have been enjoying your big 22 moments on the Stairmaster with the creatine hit, and you know what I mean. When was the moment that came when you were like, you know what? I'm gonna put my foot on some people's necks, and I'm gonna kind of like bring some of that Reddit energy to the table, bro. Because I think a lot of people really enjoyed when that happened.
I guess it's just the point where you realize you don't really got anything to be afraid of. That like people are going to talk tough. They're not going to do anything. You don't got nothing to worry about. You could just do whatever. You can make whatever kind of content. And I mean, really, the moment that made the ops, quote unquote, 63rd stop talking about me is because I basically was just willing to say, I don't care if you're tough. Like so many of these arguments come back to like I'm tough, and I'm just like I don't care. It doesn't mean anything to me that you're tough. And if you want to keep saying that shit, you're gonna have to prove it. So whatever. Like I don't care. It's just like I'm not really worried about it like that. Realistically, if you did something to me, I'm gonna handle it how I'm gonna handle it. Probably also gonna handle it in a court of law, or at least with a sternly worded phone call to the police department. I'm not scared of playing those games either as a law abiding citizen, whatever. So it's like I don't know. It's just like when you call somebody's bluff and then they just immediately stop talking about you for a period of a couple months, that kind of says everything, right? So I'm trying to leave that whole narrative in the past a little bit, but I mean, ultimately, that's kind of what it came down to was just me making it clear that I didn't give a fuck and I wasn't worried about it. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, like And honestly, like the whole Jason Love Lena thing, that kind of like put that kind of like increased the amount of hate that I was getting to such an extent that it made me realize that I really didn't care about any of it. You know, like none of this really affects me. None of this really like involves itself with my everyday life. You know, I could be having a great day making content at No Jumper and, you know, get home at 5 and spend 2 hours with my kid before bed and then, you know, go and work out or play poker or do whatever, you know, like in my big house that I get to live in because I've been so successful on content side of things or whatever. And then you go to Twitter and you got like 20,000 notifications of people shitting on you. And it's just kind of like, oh, like, whatever. Like, you don't have to care. You know, at a certain point, the Tyler, the Creator, cyberbullying tweet comes to mind where it's like, you could just walk away from the computer. Or, like, in my case, like, I read a lot of it and I just don't really care that much. Like, it just doesn't really matter. You know, I feel like, you know, my channel is successful. People love my interviews still. It feels like people have really kind of warmed up to a lot of the hosts. They enjoy seeing me and Sharp and Brick and Whack. The Whack thing has been going crazy. People are really tripping out about that. So, I mean, I don't know. I've just been like quote unquote famous or like, you know, well known on the internet for long enough that at a certain point, it's just what other people say about you is really none of your business. And I've always heard that, and it just keeps making more and more sense to me as the years go by. And the more and more high profile you get, the more and more you can imagine yourself as like a Kim Kardashian, where she gets so much hate she could never begin to even sort of deal with any of it, right? Or to like really care about any of it because it's just so pervasive. I think that's really like, that's reaching Zen as an influencer, is to have so much hate that you really can't pay attention to any of it. That's what we're all kind of aiming for, I think.